show of hands, this is not rhetorical, show of hands. How many of you have had to worry about eating the food that was sacrificed before idols? Raise them high. Okay. We got one. Not many of us. My hand was just up by way of example. I've never had to worry. Oh, whoa, we have two, and the one says turn your mic on. Okay. He's really bossy up there, too, I tell you. That's right. So, yeah, not many of us have had to worry about dealing with the food sacrificed to idols. But it doesn't mean that this passage is not germane in the lives of South Church, in our lives, in the lives of people throughout the world. I think, though, for us today, rather than dealing with food from idols, I think the thing that gets in the way more than anything are words. It's the words that we use. It's how we use them that can really be a stumbling block to people. Quite frankly, I could get up here and I could talk for 20 minutes and probably the vast majority of you would understand 2 or 3 if I were to use the vernacular of the theological education. And anybody with any specialty can do the same thing. Doesn't make anybody any smarter, it just means they learn different words. When we were going through so much with Beth and trying to figure out the illnesses and the treatments and everything, one of the things that Kathy was just marvelous at was looking at the doctors and say, now what does this mean? I know what you just said. What does it mean? What does it mean for her? What does it mean for us? What do we do? And then they would stop and they would explain it. But their first response is always in these big words that most of us it just doesn't relate to. So we always have to be careful when we're talking that we use words that each other can understand. Words that are common. And sometimes that's difficult. Sometimes we get so used to using, certain words and phrases, they become so much a part of who we are that we don't realize that in fact they might truly be a stumbling block to others. I'd like to share just a couple of examples from my life that really helped me. The first one was I had a young lady after church years ago. And she'd only been to church a couple of times. And she asked if she could come in and talk to me the next day. Of course. So she came in and she sat down and just started sobbing uncontrollably. It seemed like hours that she couldn't speak. A few minutes, but she was just inconsolable. When I finally was able to get her to settle down so that she could talk and tell me why she was here and what was causing her such pain, she said, "I'm afraid I can't come back to church." I said, "Well, okay. Then what can I do to help you find a church that you can go to?" She said, "No, I can't. I can never go to church again." Well, why? She says, "Yours was about the 5th or 6th church that I went to, trying to find that place where I can feel like I belong. And I've truly come to appreciate that there is no church for me." Conversation went on. And after about a half an hour, she was finally able to verbalize that which was causing her this dark night of the soul. Each and every week, the church in St. Louis where I was at, as we have done here every week that I have been here, and my guess is you have done for decades, we share in the Lord's Prayer. Begin for me the Lord's Prayer. Her father had abused her in ways, to this day, when I think about it, he had caused her so much pain, so much agony. She could not come before a deity that she had to understand as Father. We talked about it. I shared with her the fact that God is not male, God is not female. God is God, God is holy, God is that upon which we are built, the foundation of our very being. That this is just something that goes back thousands of years from a male-dominated society and gave her all the, what some people would say, the politically correct response, but in reality is the truth. She felt a lot better. She understood. She came back to church the following week. I explained somewhat, obviously being very, very sensitive to the fact that she was there. This notion that had come to me through the sharing of others, of really needing to be aware of the differences that we all bring to our understanding of God. So when it came time to say the Lord's Prayer, the people turned in the bulletin to where it was, and rather than starting out, Our Father, started out, Our loving parent. Compromise? Anybody have a problem with that? Most people wouldn't. That week, I received a phone call from a young man in the church. He said, I'm sorry, I can't abide by that. And my thought was going to be because we changed it from Our Father, and this young man was one that the very fact that I did not speak in King James English gave him pause. Because everyone knows that God speaks in King James English. For him, his mother had done terrible and unspeakable things to him. And he was fine with Our Father, because his father had passed away when he was young. And all he had was good memories of his dad. He wasn't there to protect him from what was to happen. Took that and mulled that over for the rest of the week, came to church, got ready to say the Lord's Prayer, and it said, O Holy One. And got grief from the other 98% because I didn't call it God. Sometimes you just can't win. But you always need to be aware. You need to hear the stories of where people are coming from and how those words can affect them. Now, I don't know, but I can make an assumption based upon the reception that the introduction of the New Century hymnal was to Zion Church in St. Louis. That not everyone was just thrilled with all the new music. Check that. The new words to a lot of the old music. I was a big proponent of the New Century hymnal. And still a big proponent of the New Century hymnal. So take your shots. Okay, that's it. That's all you get. No, that's why I move. To keep Bill awake and to make it harder to hit. A lot of us, we look at the words to the songs that that we've known for so long, and they seem, the lyrics seem defiled. And yet, in the vast majority of cases, and I will also be the first to agree that I think there are times when they went too far. And there are some songs when it comes up, I sing the old one just as loudly as everybody else does. But the overwhelming majority of examples, it was language that was changed in order to be sensitive to where other people might be. Another example, very recent, within the last 2 weeks, Dave? Oh, sure you do, Dave. Talking about how words change and how we have to be careful how we use them. We were looking around the church and we were looking at some of the different signs that are there. And one of the signs that was up was that we talked about the handicap bathroom. And I said, now I got to tell you, personally I take offense with this. This is why. The word handicap, you know where that word comes from? When all that people with disabilities could do was beg in order to make a living. So they would go with cap in hand, begging for alms from other people so that they could merely exist. That's the origin of the word handicap. Now, my guess is the vast majority of us, if we see someone, a person of color, we're not going to say, hey, there goes a colored guy. We're not going to do that. Now, we did decades ago, but that doesn't happen anymore because people's awareness has changed. We've grown as a society, and we've realized that the use of some words can be divisive, just as the notion of eating meat offered at the idols was for the people of the church at Corinth. For some people, no big deal. Idols don't have any power. All it is for me is a pre-made barbecue. That's all it was. For others, it was, oh my gosh, I can't eat this because it's been offered to an idol and we don't believe in idols. So if I eat this, I'm going to go to hell. And this was becoming a very destructive concept for them to deal with. The same thing with words today. Sometimes we just need to go back and find out where the root of the word is, how it came about, why it was used that way, and what it meant in its original usage. When Kathy and I were growing up in Cleveland, we had a very, very large Polish population. And all through junior high and high school, everybody told Polak jokes. Nobody thought anything about it. Now I think about some of those things that I did and said, and I'm truly embarrassed for what I did. Things change. People change, people grow, people find themselves in different places where words, well, they don't necessarily mean or are not accepted in the same way. Now comes to why this particular message was so difficult for me.